All right, let's dive in. Today we're exploring a world where faith is, well, it's a business. And business is booming. Our way into this whole thing, it starts with one of the wildest TV interviews you will ever see.
So that was preacher Kenneth Copeland, trying to explain why he owns a fleet of private jets. His reason for not flying commercial? He called it, and I'm not kidding, a long tube with a bunch of demons. I mean, it's a shocking thing to say, right? But believe it or not, that one statement, it's kind of the key that unlocks this whole multi-billion-dollar world.
And yeah, once you see that interview, you start digging. And you quickly realize you've just stumbled down a massive rabbit hole. See, this isn't just about one guy and his jets. Oh no, it's about an entire industry, all built on a very specific kind of faith. One that just so happens to generate an incredible amount of money. You know, that clip went totally viral. And for a lot of people, it was a real eye-opener. It put a huge spotlight on a reality that most of us just aren't aware of. The staggering amount of wealth these religious leaders actually control. I mean, we're talking private airports, sprawling multi-million-dollar mansions, luxury jets, and here's the kicker. It's all funded by their followers. And very often, it's all operating tax-free. And look, as you can see here, Copeland is not some kind of outlier. He's far from alone. You've got guys like Creflo Dollar, who, get this, once asked his followers for $65 million to buy a new jet. Then there's Joel Osteen, the pastor of the biggest church in America, and of course Benny Hinn, who packs out stadiums all over the world for his massive events. The sheer scale of this whole thing, it's just staggering. So, all of this begs the big question, right? How on earth is this possible? Why aren't the very people footing the bill for these lifestyles up in arms? Well, to get that, we have to peel back the layers and look at the actual core belief system they're selling. And the answer, really, it all comes down to this one idea. It's a theological concept called the prosperity gospel. And what it does is completely flip the script on the traditional relationship between faith and money. Okay, so what is the prosperity gospel? Well, at its heart, it teaches that God actually wants you to be rich and healthy. In this way of thinking, wanting to be prosperous isn't a sin at all. It's your divine right as a believer. And the key to unlocking all that wealth and health? It comes down to faith and, crucially, donating money. And it's laid out as this really simple, almost transactional process. Step 1, you sow a seed. That's the term for giving a donation to the ministry. Step 2, you just have to stay in faith, believing without a doubt that God is going to reward you. And then step 3, you reap the harvest. That's when God supposedly returns your investment, often with interest, whether it's money, health, you name it. And this whole sowing a seed idea, well, it can be used to fund some pretty extraordinary things. Remember Creflo Dollar? When he wanted that new Gulfstream G650 jet, he framed the $65 million price tag as an opportunity for his followers to sow a seed. And reports say his congregation actually cheered at the idea.
Now this is where it gets really interesting because it kind of turns logic on its head. In this system, a preacher driving a Rolls-Royce or flying in a private jet isn't seen as hypocrisy. No, it's the ultimate advertisement. Their incredible wealth is held up as living proof that the sow and reap system actually works. It's a feature, not a bug.
But the promise here isn't just about getting rich. For a lot of people, the stakes are so much higher than that. It's also about the promise of something even more precious, divine healing from sickness and disease. And this is where a guy like Benny Hinn really comes into play. He is famous all over the world for his massive miracle crusades. We're talking huge stadium events where people, often with serious illnesses, show up hoping to be healed right there on stage by him, supposedly through the power of God. But investigative reports have started to raise some pretty serious questions. Documentaries have shown these people called screeners who work the crowds at Hinn's events. And their job, it seems, is to find and intercept people with really severe, obviously visible illnesses. People like Grace, just a little girl, or Justin, who has cerebral palsy, and make sure they never ever get up on that stage. You see, for some families, getting on that stage feels like a matter of life and death. There was this HBO documentary that followed the Prakash family. Their 10-year-old son, Ashneel, he had 2 massive brain tumors and was in a vegetative state. The words of his father here, they just perfectly capture the absolute profound hope they were clinging to when they went to that crusade.
And the family did make it on stage. Hinn laid his hands on Ashneel and promised them they should expect a miracle. But 7 weeks later, Ashneel passed away. And when reporters asked the family if they felt let down, they said no. They said they blamed a generational curse, an idea they said they actually learned from Pastor Benny himself.
I mean, that's just a devastating story. And it forces us to ask a really tough question. If these aren't actual, verifiable, divine miracles, then what in the world are we seeing on that stage? What are people really experiencing in those moments?
Well, to answer that question, we have to step outside of theology for a minute. We need to look at the mechanics of psychology, of performance, and the truly incredible power of our own minds.
And this is a perfect example. The illusionist Darren Brown did this TV special called Miracles for Sale. He actually trained a regular guy off the street to become a totally convincing faith healer. His whole point was to show that everything you see at these huge crusades can be replicated with no divine power whatsoever, using nothing but pure psychological techniques.
Okay, so take the famous leg growing trick. You've probably seen this one. Someone's leg appears to magically grow like inches right in front of everyone. But as we can see here, it's actually just a clever bit of misdirection. It's a well-known illusion. By just subtly shifting one of the person's shoes forward before they start, the healer can then make it look like the leg is growing when all they're really doing is lining the feet back up properly. It's a physical trick. It's not a miracle.
But listen, it's not all just cheap tricks. There's a much more powerful force at play here, and that's the placebo effect. Just think about the environment of a crusade, right? It's super high emotion, the expectations are through the roof, you've got the music, thousands of people believing together, this super charismatic leader. It's the perfect recipe for maximizing the placebo effect. And people's powerful belief that they will be healed can trigger real, though often temporary, changes in their body, like feeling less pain.
And this is what reveals the big limitation. The healings you always see on stage, they almost always involve things that the placebo effect can actually influence. Subjective stuff, like pain, or a temporary ability to move a little better. You might see someone stand up from a wheelchair for a moment, but what you never see is a biologically impossible miracle. You never ever see an amputee's limb grow back.
So, you might be thinking, with all these questions, all these criticisms, why is this movement still going? Why is it not just surviving, but actually thriving? Well, the answer seems to be that the system itself is just too powerful and too deeply embedded to fail.
I mean, look at this stunning reversal from Benny Hinn. Back in 2019, he came out and publicly said he was done with the prosperity gospel. He even said, "I'm sorry, prosperity has gone a little crazy." It felt like a huge moment, right? A real turning point. But then, just a little while later, he was right back on TV telling his followers, what else? It's time to sow seed so God can bless you and reward you. It just goes to show you the business model might be too powerful, even for its biggest stars to escape from.
And so that leaves us here with the really difficult reality. These movements are successful because they offer things that people desperately need: hope, a sense of purpose, a community. But by tying all of those essential human needs to a system of financial giving that promises supernatural rewards, they create this incredibly powerful and really complex dynamic. And it forces all of us to ask a tough question. Where is the line between genuine faith and powerful exploitation?